Welcome back to the broadcast dedicated to dissecting the classified documents that reveal how intelligence agencies transcend conventional physics in the relentless pursuit of absolute strategic advantage. Today, we move beyond space, beyond mind control, and confront the most absolute of all human constraints: time. We address the chilling fact that the U.S. intelligence dedicated analytical resources to the possibility of manipulating the arrow of time itself. We are analyzing the CIA's involvement in studying temporal anomalies and potential time travel, not as abstract theory, but as an applied physics challenge with profound strategic implications. Our primary evidence is the declassified file CIA-RDP88-01314R000100050012-5. This highly complex redacted report is titled, quote, Observed Disruptions in Casualty and the Engineering of Temporal Displacement, end quote. It confirms that resources were tasked with evaluating anomalous instances of precognition and assessing the theoretical viability of nonlinear temporal engagement. The context here is the ultimate intelligence dream. If an intelligence service can acquire verified information from the future, the concept of surprise, reaction time, and conventional warfare cease to exist. Every strategic movement becomes known and every outcome can be preemptively controlled. The file's existence confirms that the temporal constraint, the adherence to a linear sequence of events, was viewed as a strategic weakness that required technological correction. The analysis focused on two primary areas: one, observed anomalies that defy conventional casualty, and two, theoretical physics models that could enable operational temporal displacement. The sheer intellectual ambition demonstrated by this research confirms that the intelligence community is willing to follow theoretical physics to its most extreme and disruptive conclusion, provided the strategic payoff is absolute. Let's drill down into the clinical details of the phenomenon documented in this document. The analysts were not interested in parlor tricks. They were tracking specific verifiable failures of linear casualty. The file defines observed disruptions in casualty as events where information, or in some cases physical evidence, manifest prior to the causal event that generated it. Specifically, analysts examined instances of precognitive data acquisition. This involved analyzing reports where highly specific, non-obvious intelligence was acquired before it was generated by conventional means, such as an asset providing coordinates for a future unscheduled enemy movement. The file required analysts to separate simple intuition from verifiable, actionable precognition, forcing them to establish rigorous metrics for confirming the advance of information against the timeline of its generation. The document includes conceptual diagrams, heavily redacted of course, of how a closed time-like curve, a CTC, or the manipulation of a space-time curvature would theoretically permit nonlinear access to information. The fundamental question was whether physics permitted the loop. Now we must examine the primary evidence, the agency's assessment of the observed reality. This is a critical excerpt regarding the confirmation of anomalies. Quote number 1. Analysis of specific information acquisition events demonstrates a statistically significant deviation from random chance, suggesting access to nonlinear data streams or the violation of the established chronological structure by human consciousness, end quote. A second quote from a section discussing operational risk. Quote, the successful engineering of temporal displacement or even the stable acquisition of temporal intelligence by an adversarial power represents an existential threat, immediately nullifying all conventional defense doctrines based on predictable sequential action, end quote. This is the true meaning of the file. It states that observed events already defied the established chronological structure. The agency's job was not to debate the metaphysics of time travel, but to calculate the strategic risks posed by the fact that time travel, or something functionally equivalent, was indeed being observed. The focus shifted from is it possible to how do we stabilize and weaponize the effect. We now address the terrifying practical side of the file, the exploration of temporal engineering. This section outlines the theoretical framework for achieving temporal displacement. The most heavily redacted sections occur where the document discusses energy requirements and mechanisms of engagement. This is where the physics moves into the realm of applied technology, discussing what physical inputs, likely extreme gravitational fields, exotic matter, or immense energy pulses, would be required to initiate a localized temporal effect. Why redact the energy requirements? Because this is the blueprint for the machine. Revealing the necessary energy calculations would give the world the key to replicating the device, confirming the underlying viability of the theory. The concept discussed is the manipulation of the Planck time barrier and the localized creation of micro wormholes or transient time-like curves. The goal was to find a stable method for sending data, or ideally a sensor package, into the past or future. The strategic weaponization of this research is clear. It is a casualty weapon. A state possessing this capability would not need to fight a war. They would simply ensure the enemy never builds their weapons, never moves their assets, and never makes the decision that leads to confrontation. The file's existence proves that the intelligence community viewed the control of temporal data as the final absolute strategic advantage, a capability that renders all other military and economic superiority obsolete. The theoretical models analyzed confirm the agency was dedicated to achieving a weapon that doesn't just predict the future, but guarantees it. We conclude our analysis of this document. The existence, content, and extreme redactions within this file confirm the U.S. intelligence treated the manipulation of time as an actionable, high-priority strategic objective. The implication is that analysis moved into the sphere of operational testing, attempting to identify, stabilize, and exploit temporal anomalies for verifiable intelligence gain. The implications for casualty and free will are profound, but for the analysts, the only implication that mattered was strategic superiority. If this documented truth has opened your mind to the theoretical boundaries explored by those in power, we require your continued support. First, like this episode and leave us a detailed 5-star review wherever you listen. This is how the analysis cuts through the static of conventional thinking. Second, share this episode with someone obsessed with theoretical physics and casualty. We need more sharp minds analyzing these documented facts. Next, we're going to move from the complexities of temporal physics to the even greater complexity of biology and consciousness. We will analyze the CIA's classified research into synthetic neurobiology and the digital replication of consciousness, the agency's attempt to transfer, replicate, and store human intellect in a non-biological substrate. For our next investigation, we will dissect and analyze the document CIA-RDP88-01314R000100050012-5 0050009R00002000050007-8, a complex file concerning cognitive mapping and non-biological storage of human identity. What specific neurological mapping techniques did the analysts study to achieve a complete digital clone of the human mind? What were the ethical and security risks of creating fully synthetic, controllable intelligence based on deceased or compromised human subjects? And how did they plan to use these synthetic consciousness in covert operations? Tune in next for Project Remote View, Synthetic Souls, and the Non-Biological Agent. Until then, remember, maintain your vigilance, question the constraints of physics, and keep your critical thinking sharp. I'll see you in the archives.